Hello students, hope you are doing well. So here we have one of the text and text gives us the direction that there is a passage below, and on the basis of the passage we have a set of questions, uh, and we need to choose the best answer to that particular question or each of the questions. Well, before we jump to the question, let me tell you that this is a kind of a text which discusses the rhetorical evolution of the Christian concept of heaven, contrasting the traditional spatial understanding. And then, after it is stated about with the contemporary perspectives, it references Conrad Aslakash in the year of 1623. You can say that the astronomer Conrad Aslakash, and it described of heaven as a specific place in the universe, contrasting it with the modern idea of heaven as a non-physical dimension area. The narrative explores the influence of Greek philosophy on early Christian ideas and how the cosmological framework changed with the heliocentric model of Copernicus and Galileo, isn't it? So that's what you would find out in this particular one, as a kind of a summary of this complete passage. I hope you have read that and you got the main idea of the text. So the main idea of the text is what? The main idea of the text is to trace the historical development of the Christian concept of heaven. So what is that? It's called as uh, to trace the historical concept, isn't it? Historical concept, historic, historical concept. Beside that, also it is indicating about it emphasizes the shift from a spatial understanding based on traditional cosmology, um, cosmological based on sorry, traditional cosmology to a more abstract and non-physical interpretation influenced by contemporary beliefs, isn't it? So if you look into the tone of the text, so what is the tone of the text? The tone of the text is nothing but informative and scholarly, as well as presenting historical facts and philosophical influences on Christian ideas about heaven. There is an objective tone in describing the evolution of these beliefs over time, isn't it? So, generally, we can call it as a influential and objective tone, right? Uh, Now, if I talk about the style of the text, so the style of the text, it is a kind of a academic one, academic one. So, incorporating historical references and quoting Konrad Aslakash, right? Konrad Aslakash, um, you can say that to illustrate the traditional understanding of heaven, the author employs a clear and a structured approach to convey the information, convey the information about the changing goal on the location of heaven with the Christian cosmological framework, isn't it? Uh, so the argument here revolves around the transformation of the Christian concept of heaven from a physically located place in the universe, as described by the figures like Conrad Aslakash, to a more abstract and non-spatial understanding. Non-spatial understanding. So the author highlights the impact of Greek philosophical ideas and the shift in cosmological introduction. You can say that, and that cosmology introduced by Copernicus and Galileo as crucial factor in this evolution. So there is a contrast also. The contrast you could find out between historical and contemporary perspective is used to underscore the changing nature of Christian beliefs regarding the location of heaven. Okay, so what we have discussed here, we discussed the tone of it, style of it, and the main idea of the text, main idea of the text, and as well as the argument of the text, isn't it? Now let's move to the question. What does the question point out here? So the question given here, which of the following options capture the main idea of the passage the most accurately? So as far as I told you, the main idea is to what? Trace. Trace what? The historical development. Trace the historical uh, historical development of the Christian concept of heaven, and emphasize the shift from a spatial understanding based on traditional cosmology to a more abstract and non-physical interpretation influenced by contemporary beliefs, isn't it? So let's look at the option. Which one is pointing the main idea of the text? The first one is stated here. The passage discusses the history of Christian beliefs in heaven and how they influence astronomy. Here we find out that option one is incorrect, because the passage does touch in the history of Christian belief in heaven and how they were influenced by, you can say that, by cosmological ideas, isn't it? You can say that, but at the same time, it is not, it's a primary focus. It's not about how this belief influenced astronomy. Rather, it's about the changing perception. What is that? That called as a changing perception, right? Changing perception. Uh, it's also stated about changing perception of what? Changing perception of heaven in the context of cosmological shifts. So, therefore, we cannot take the option one. Look at the second option. The passage explores the evolving Christian concept of heaven and its connection to cosmological ideas. Now, if I look into this option two, this is the correct one. Why? Because it is pointed about the or the explores the evolving Christian concept of heaven and its connection to cosmological ideas, which is the main point actually. If I talk about the option three, the passage argues that the belief in heaven is incompatible with the modern scientific understanding. Right. Look into the other options. The passage argues that the belief in heaven is incompatible with modern scientific understanding. So the passage does not actually claim, right? Claim what? That the belief in heaven is incompatible with modern science. Instead, it discusses how the concept of heaven changed in response to scientific development. If I look into the option 4, it is stated about the passage debates the existence of heaven. So the passage does not debate the existence of heaven, rather, it discusses the changing perception of heaven within the context of cosmological shift. So, hence, what do we find out? That the answer of this question would be 2, on the basis of the region we point out that the passage explores the changing Christian concept of heaven and its connection to cosmological ideas. So, which is the main point of this particular text or this particular question's answer. I hope you understood. That's all. Thank you.